Today, I want to share 3 keys with you for learning difficult music as a bass player. As an example, we're going to use the tune Rocks from the Brecker Brothers' debut album in 1975, and it's the very last phrase of the tune. It's a ton of notes. It's a real finger twister. Check it out. As you hear, it's not slow, it's not easy, but we're going to break it down. I'll show you my process for how I learn music like this. It's fresh in my mind. I was just out in Morocco at the Gnawa Music Festival with Randy Brecker, the Brecker Brothers band reunion, and Rocks was on the set list. I had about 15 tunes to learn, and I spent a bunch of time working on Rocks. Unfortunately, after all the work I did on the tune, we never actually got to play the song on the show. It got cut from the set list due to time restrictions. But let's dive into the 3 keys I use for learning difficult music like this. In fact, they are 3 keys you can apply to pretty much any music you're learning. Key number 1 is listening. Before you even get to the bass, it's so important to listen to not just the difficult part, the little lick that I just played you, but to listen to the song in its entirety. You want to take that macro view, that wide angle view of the song. Sometimes the difficult bits are going to be in the middle of the song. If you practice them only in isolation over and over again to start with, you might not get a feel for where they appear. And form is so important. That needs to be second nature when you're performing. The appearance of the difficult spots need to be no more of a surprise than the appearance of something totally easy. So listen to the song over and over and over again, regardless of where the difficult part appears. You're going to need to do this anyway, just to identify potential speed bumps and hurdles that you might have to spend more time overcoming. And then, yes, absolutely dial into repetition of listening when it comes to that one phrase, for instance, over and over and over again, as long as you can stand it. Actually, I always say practice a little longer, listen a little longer than you think you need to. It pays off so much in the end when you get on stage and finally have to play this stuff. Key number 2 is breaking everything down. Taking it all apart, disassembling the line, maybe do a little bit of harmonic analysis, find some shapes that actually sound kind of crazy when they're in the context of the line, but when you split them apart, when you break them up, actually they can be pretty fundamental to harmony, to melody, probably things you already know. So don't sell your own ability short. The more you can break something like this down into little sections, little pieces, the more I think you might realize that, oh, wow, that's just a major scale. Oh, that's just a pentatonic. Yeah, it's being played really fast. Maybe it's in a combination that I've never played before, but fundamentally, there's a good chance you probably know all of the components that go into this seemingly crazy lick. Now, you may have to learn this just by listening to it. Maybe somebody sent you a recording. There's no notation, no sheet music, no chart. Okay, that's one approach. I'm very fortunate that I got sent the book of music, all the charts for the Brecker Brothers music. Now, the only hitch in the rhythm section part, the part that the bass, the drums, the guitar, and the keyboards all share for this tune, is that the lick is actually written out in treble clef. I happen to read treble clef very well, but I know not everyone does. So that's another little hurdle you might have to overcome depending on your situation. But the ability to read, whether it be in treble clef or bass clef, really gives me much faster access to the information rather than having to sort of pick through the chart or spend a long time transcribing the line. Reading, although not essential, and I say you can absolutely be a professional musician and not read music, I think reading is super important because it gives you so much faster access to material such as this. And it allowed me to read the notes right off the page. That's not something I want to be doing on the gig. By the time the gig comes around, I don't want to have my head buried in the chart. I want to have lines like this, the more complex elements of the songs, completely under my fingers. There are going to be so many other moving parts on a gig, other members of the band, audience, monitors, all kinds of distractions, lights, you name it. There's any number of things that can distract you. So the more you have this in your muscle memory, especially the difficult parts, the better. And the way I broke this down was I took the first 2 phrases of the line because they're very similar. Apart from the pickup of these 2 notes, the first 2 main chunks are just major scales. And they're a whole step apart. So we have basically the first We have 4 notes of G major, G, F sharp, E, D, and then we go up a whole step to A, G sharp, F sharp, E. So remember when I said maybe the lick sounds crazy, but fundamentally you probably know the elements of it? Well, if you know what a major scale is, then for sure you can play the first 2 parts of this line. And I have to say, it continually amazes me how much of all of this stuff is just the basics. I've written 2 books, all the good stuff, all the better stuff, jam-packed full of exercises like this, of major scale stuff, of minor pentatonic stuff, major pentatonic stuff, the real fundamentals. There's one line in all the better stuff that I was using to help work on this line, because it just outlines a major scale in patterns. Doing that in, of course, all keys just gives me such a head start when it comes to breaking down a really tough lick and being able to get inside it. Now, I say that all the fundamentals may be known to you already, and yes, the combination of each section of fundamentals is going to be a little bit challenging. The way I've made it less challenging for myself is the repetition of the fundamentals, completely unrelated to this Brecker Brothers lick, for instance. It's really drilling this stuff every single day for the past 30 plus years. It's not sexy. Sometimes it can be boring. Sometimes it's like, oh, that's not the most fun thing I could be doing with the bass. But holy crap, getting on stage and having that ultimate confidence in, I'm going to nail this. Like, that's how I feel when I get on stage. That's how I want you to be able to feel when you get on stage. It's the whole purpose of making videos like this and breaking it all down and explaining it. That's why I write these freaking books. That's why they're so important. They're just all my practice routines. If you want to dig deeper into any of the stuff in these books, there are physical copies that I sign and ship worldwide. You can also get physical copies from Amazon, digital copies at the website. They all come with bass tab, with standard notation, play-alongs, videos, the whole package. They're basically my entire practice routine for the last 30 years. They are the reason I can arrive at a lick like this and not feel any anxiety about it. Even if I can't play it, even if it's way out of my reach, I know that the fundamental work I've done on these really simple diatonic, major, minor, pentatonic, major scale stuff, those are the things that is my foundation level of training that will get me through the lick and will get me up and running way faster than had I not done that work. So we're breaking it down. Major scale, up a whole step. Now we get to minor pentatonic. I might relate that to E flat minor, for instance. E flat minor pentatonic, and we're playing in intervals of fourths. So there's another, I think that's from all the better stuff. Just a pattern of fourths. Like, these things spring back to me as soon as I hear them in the context of this Brecker Brothers line. And that's why it's so natural for me to play those shapes as well. That's something I've spent, thousands of hours on. And it really doesn't take thousands of hours, actually. It just takes some consistency and some repetition of playing those basic shapes. So when you get to a line like this, it's like, oh, I know that. I don't know this particular combination, but I totally know that, and I'm going to be cool. I know what I have to do. So we get to these fourths, and then we get to another really common shape, a major pentatonic in B flat this time. 1, 2, 3, 5, 3, 4, 2, 1, and it's descending. So 5, 3, 2, 1. Let's play the whole thing so far. Major, major, pentatonic, major. And then we change it to another key center to G flat or F sharp, and we play 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 5. So the whole thing in context. So harmonically speaking, we've got major and we've got minor pentatonic. That's it. I'm pretty sure everyone watching this video is capable of playing a major scale, a major pentatonic, and a minor pentatonic. And with that, you you can play this Brecker Brothers line that, as you heard at the top of the video, is not easy. It's really complex. It's really fast. Technically, it might take you a little while to get there, but fundamentally, I'm pretty sure everyone watching this video so far can now get all of those pieces into place. Okay, third and final key to learning difficult music. I hope this comes as no shock to anyone. It's repetition. It's good old time spent with the instrument, time spent with the line. There's no substitute for it at all. One really important thing that I want to point out coming from our analysis portion, key number 2, is that you will develop fingerings that work best for you, that feel the most comfortable, position shifts, places to start, places to end, ranges in which to play the line. What's going to happen now as we practice, as we go through repetition, and more importantly, as we get up to speed so we can play it at the right tempo with the record, you're going to find that things are slightly different sometimes. I almost guarantee the fingering from when you were working the line out and playing it slow is going to change, even if just one or two things, one little position shift, one fingering shift. I almost guarantee that that's going to change as you move higher in tempo. Nothing wrong with that at all. That's totally expected, because there are certain things that you can do at a slow tempo that maybe as you wind it up are just completely impossible and don't make any sense. So be aware of that. If you find that I'm getting stuck, I can't get past a certain tempo, maybe you need to go back to the analysis stage and okay, what are my other fingering options? There's one very key element of this line in particular. I take a little bit of artistic license and I change the very last phrase. I put it down an octave. It's meant to be played up the octave there. At least that's how it is on the recording. And because of the nature of playing it live, I feel that low D flat is a nice punch, a nice ending. It fits well with the kick drum, with the band as a whole. That's kind of an orchestration, like I said, artistic license that I'm taking there. I haven't been fired for it yet, and I have actually played this tune with Randy many times, and it feels good live. Sometimes I have to think about, okay, live versus the album. It's also a little bit easier to play it there. I'm not doing it there because it's easier. That's another artistic thing. Notice I'm starting down here. I'm starting down on the 3rd fret of the A string because I feel there's a little more punch there. I could start the whole line. Could start the whole line on the E string, but it's a little softer the higher up the instrument you go. I don't feel there's the right amount of definition for where I would like it playing the tune live. So I start down here, and instead of going all the way up, I just drop down an octave, and it's really close. It's a really easy shift, and I think it sounds great live. Now with repetition, it's really important to find your repeatable tempo. It's that tempo that you can play it perfectly every single time. That may be, it may be up there already, depending on your ability. Regardless of where it is, I'd actually definitely recommend practicing it slower, but don't be afraid to practice it way slow. Repeatable. Remember that word. It's a really key word when it comes to the repetition portion of the process. Is it repeatable? Can you do it every time without fail? 10 out of 10, 50 out of 50, 100 out of 100 times without a mistake. That is generally going to be your foundation, your starting point. That's the place where you're most comfortable, you're most confident, and it's the place where you can build from. If you start too fast, where you're kind of shaky and you're missing a note here and there, all you're going to do is embed those mistakes into your process. The more you can repeat this thing with the right fingering at the slower tempo, every single time, perfect. Go slower than that. You see how more exposed it is at a slower tempo? There's so much more space between the notes. There's so much more time to think, so much more time to move. And yeah, that makes some of the position shifts easier. But for my money, it makes it more difficult to have clarity of every single note at that slow tempo. There's so much more room for error. At a fast tempo, you can sort of hide a bunch of stuff. So I'll leave you with that. Maybe it's a cliche. Maybe you've heard it 1,000 times before. Practice slow, practice often, practice with consistency. But for the repetition portion of this process, those are really, really important elements. If somebody has told you that, bravo, they are a fantastic teacher. They're giving you great advice. Something I've been using for over 30 years. Like I said, my entire practice routine is basically in these two books. All the good stuff, all the better stuff, they're available below if you want to dig deeper into that and do the work on the foundation of your playing. That is what I want you to leave this video with, regardless of the books, regardless of the Brecker Brothers lick or anything. It's about finding the way forwards to confidence and ultimately having way more fun when you pick up the instrument, when you get on stage with your friends, with your bandmates, and when you go to do this thing we all love, to make music and to play the bass. I really appreciate you spending some of your insanely precious time with me here, talking about music, learning about the bass. I will see you on the next video.